Story 1. Hey, this is my first post, so I hope it's good. So I was at the register and Karen and her kid walked up to my lane and started to check out. Everything was fine until I saw her child put a toy in his pocket trying to steal it. He was about 9 through 12, so I said something about it. Ma'am, your child put a toy in his pocket. Are you going to pay for that? Karen then started yelling, "How dare you accuse my baby of stealing?" But ma'am, he has never stolen and never will. But I just saw him put it in his pocket. Sweetie, did you put a toy in your pocket and try to take it? No, I didn't, Mommy. See? He didn't, so stop accusing my baby of that. Ma'am, I can call the cops if you want me to. She shrieks at the top of her lungs. No, he's just a child and he did nothing. And here comes that magic line Karen say, "I want to speak to your manager." Okay, ma'am. I then call my manager down and he talks to Karen. Then we went up to his office and waited there for the cops to show up. The cop shows up and starts to talk to the child. He talks about the toy and stealing and going to juvie. That's when Karen hears juvie and yells at the cop. He cannot go to juvie because he's too young. Ma'am, please calm down. Karen starts getting even louder. No, you cannot and will not take my baby. And then she tries to take a swing at him and misses. That's when she realized that she screwed up. So the cop takes her and drops her to the ground and arrests her. Fun fact, she had a couple felonies on her and a warrant for her arrest. Plus, she kidnapped her own child from her ex-husband. So she went to jail for a good amount of time and can never see her child ever again. I just hope that the child never steals again and becomes more like his dad. He's really nice. Story 2. I live in a 4-unit apartment building on the ground floor with my partner. We have lived here for 3 years. When we moved in, our upstairs neighbor was a flight attendant who was rarely home, totally ideal. She moved out and the new tenants could be loud at times, but never much and never late. They moved out after a year. Our story begins with their replacements. A couple roughly our ages, late 20s, early 30s, move in. The first few days were pretty loud, but we assumed they wanted to get everything in soon, even if it meant doing so late at night, getting set up, etc. A couple of weeks passed, but the noises never really stopped. Slamming doors at 11 p.m., having loud screaming fights, etc. My partner is possibly the world's heaviest sleeper. I have a hard time waking him up for anything. He was also lucky enough to travel for work at this time, so he didn't deal with most of it. When he was home, though, it woke him up. Roughly 15 days after moving in, they wake us up at midnight fighting. It quiets down, we go back to sleep. Then we get woken up at 4 a.m. to more fighting. My partner goes up and knocks on the door. He gives a gentle, "Hey guys, sorry to come up, but we have work in the morning and can't be getting woken up like this." The guy apologizes. The girl has the glassy-eyed stare of someone drinking or taking something, and the whole time her partner is apologizing. She is slurring that her partner is a jerk. My partner comes back downstairs. An hour later, one of the loud couples calls the cops. They ask for our statements, if we heard anything, what we heard, and that's that. They quiet down for maybe a week. Then the nightly fight starts, waking us up at midnight, 2, 4, sometimes multiple times a night. So not wanting to be too over the top, we write a note. The general gist being, "Hey, noise ordinance is 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. You've woken us up quite a few times slamming doors or having fights. We'd appreciate it if you keep it down during these hours. We don't want to have to involve the landlord, but we do need to sleep." Tape it up on the door and leave it. 2 days later, we received a 2-page return note from the girl. Highlights include, "Fine, I'll leave my garbage not in a cabinet. I sure hope my dog doesn't eat something and die," and, "We can hear you sneeze and go to the bathroom. Should we threaten to call the landlord too?" And quite a few references about their rights in their apartment. I was really angry, but almost wanted to hear the reaction of my landlord for being told we sneezed and used the bathroom. Still, my partner went upstairs and tried to clear the air and explained that we definitely don't care what they do, but it's not okay to wake us up during noise ordinance hours. But both times he went up when they were home, they refused to answer. Fine. So I started keeping a log. Simple. November 4th, 2017 am loud fighting, every time they woke us up. In 2 weeks we were woken up 10 times, sometimes twice a night. My partner even recorded it on his phone, and geez, it is loud. We emailed it to the landlord and asked if he could please remind them of the noise ordinance because we need to be able to sleep. He did so, and it was okay for a couple of weeks. And then it started again. We started responding. If they woke us up, we would knock on the ceiling. It would quiet down. Once, we got really annoyed and played Baby Shark on our phone at full blast pointed at the ceiling for like 30 seconds. Then one night, when my partner was out of town for work, they woke me up at 2 am fighting. I knocked on the ceiling, they moved it to the living room, and I tried to sleep. About an hour later, they were back fighting in the bedroom. I knocked, and she stomped back as hard as she could about 10 times and screamed at me for being a witch. Well then, they kept screaming at each other, throwing things, setting off their car alarms. I had enough. I called the police and reported a domestic disturbance. The police came, talked to me, went upstairs, slammed on their door, and shouted "Police, open up," and that's all I knew until I left for work around 6 am. I went out to get in my car and found a cell phone and cigarette rolling supplies in the parking lot behind my car. I picked them up and moved them in the grass. Petty, I know, and went to work. It was still there when I got home. I ignored it. A little while later there was a knock at my door. I wasn't going to open it, but heard a tiny dog, so knew it was my good neighbor in the other upstairs unit. I let her in, and she asked what happened. I told her I called the cops. She said she was close to doing the same, and no one had been home there all day. She heard one of them being read their Miranda rights though. I grabbed the stuff from outside and put it outside their door because I didn't want to leave a phone out overnight. Over the next few days we learned the girlfriend had been put in court-ordered rehab. Apparently she had clawed the heck out of the guy, among other things. That weekend they moved their stuff out. Her one day, him the next day. I wasn't trying to get anyone kicked out, but man, being able to sleep is nice. Story 3. Background. I was a squad leader, in charge of 9 humanoids, at the time. We had semi-recently returned from a deployment from arguably the worst neighborhood in Baghdad, Iraq. I had received Aaron a couple months prior to the deployment. He performed superbly during airborne operations, field training exercises, and live fire exercises. The kid was great, away or confined from civilization. However, Aaron was nothing but trouble when he was free to his own devices. We had a surprise urinalysis during one of our training exercises, and guess who pissed hot? Aaron. He was a stellar soldier though, and the entire organization fought to keep him due to the upcoming deployment. Maybe we could change him. Iraq. The deployment was 15 months long, longer than any other deployment I had been on before. There was a 2-week rest and recuperation leave, vacation, for each soldier during the deployment due to the length. We decided who and when would go on vacation early in the deployment. We had planned for Aaron to go towards the later half of the deployment in hopes of him maturing as a soldier and human. 10 months later. It was time. Aaron seemed like he had turned the corner and started to mature. He was no longer a break-in-case-of-war-only soldier. His team leader, direct supervisor, myself, and the platoon sergeant, in charge of 42 humanoids, had sat Aaron down and counseled him on our expectations. You see, Aaron had compiled a stack of cash due to the deployment. He was making more than $3,000 a month, and also re-enlisted and received a $20,000 tax-free, due to deployment, bonus. The kid was sitting on $50,000. We knew it, and boy did he know it. Some background about Aaron. He was raised by his mother, and they were literally dirt floor poor. Running water was not a thing at his house. He grew up in the backwoods of North Carolina and Tennessee. His father was only sporadically in the picture. The army was the only thing going for him. Now this kid had money, lots of it, and we were about to set him free into the world for 2 weeks. The kid was let off the leash for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Much to our surprise, he wasn't arrested, or at least he wasn't caught breaking any laws. However, he had some stories to tell when he returned. Aaron reconnected with his father. Aaron met the love of his life. Aaron bought his dad a truck. Aaron bought himself a truck. Aaron bought himself a four-wheeler. Aaron bought his dad a gun. Aaron bought himself a gun. Aaron is freaking broke again. No worries though. We semi-expected this to happen. At least the kid was on the leash again. Maybe we can work the crazy out of this kid over the next 5 months. Redeployment. We return home and return to our normal army lives. Months go by and we have no issues with Aaron. Then we have another urinalysis. There is no reason to expect anything, and Aaron is acting normal. We casually joke around about the last urinalysis, and he exclaims that he is a changed man. Good. The next day at work Aaron is late. At least we think he is late. We ask his friends, but nobody knows where he is. Now Aaron is unaccounted for with a failure to report. We continue to ask his closest friends if there is anything we should know. Nick, his closest friend, informs us that he just received a text in which Aaron stated, "Screw the army, I'm not coming back." Great, now he's absent without leave. This is just a giant hassle now. There are certain things we have to do in this situation, such as clear his room. The first sergeant, big boss, and the entire platoon leadership go to Aaron's room to inventory the remaining possessions, put them in storage, and prepare the room for future soldiers. This is typically a mundane process. Not Aaron's room, though. This kid was an odd cat. Evidently, he only packed the essentials during his hurry to quit the army. This list of things found in his room went something like this: Xbox, PlayStation 1, camera, so much alcohol, and other inappropriate stuff that shouldn't be mentioned here. This list goes on and on with numerous things one wouldn't expect. Months pass, and we are now doing expert infantry badge testing, large hands-on testing for some shiny metal, and I have my crew of 3 soldiers. We get on the topic of Aaron during breaks and in between testing candidates. Not only did Aaron hassle us with his departure from the army, but he sent emails to the leadership embellishing war stories and dead-out lying about events. The kid wasn't even in the army anymore, but he was still making our lives difficult. I wanted revenge. We wanted revenge. Out of nowhere, Nick, soldier, informs us that Aaron still talks to him via text. What? That's great. Where is he? What is he doing? Have you seen him? We need to learn more. We coach Nick into finding out where he is. Start slow, don't make it too overt. It took 3 weeks of coaching to finally get them to link up together. They met in a random town in North Carolina. Aaron didn't want Nick to know where he lived yet. Fine by us. We continue to orchestrate meetings in neutral locations, until Nick is trusted enough to spend the weekend at Aaron's place, in Charlotte, North Carolina. Great, we have an address now. Then Nick drops a bomb on us. Aaron lives with his dad, and he is deep in the family business. You see, he reconnected with his father because his father had just been paroled. His father became a self-made man after that. Aaron and his father were doing well for themselves financially. The family business venture. Yet it was meth. Nick stated that he never wanted to go back to Aaron's house again. He lived on a cul-de-sac in a not-so-good part of town. One would assume that neighbors would not be too keen on having a meth house in the neighborhood, but the neighbors were mostly customers, so it worked out. The house was full of meth heads, needles, junky chaos. What did we do? What any good citizen would do. I called the Charlotte Police Department and informed them, in great detail, of our little situation. I wanted Aaron to pay for his sins, the lies he told and the hassle he put the organization through, especially after we fought for him. The plan. We didn't want Nick at the house. Didn't want him getting mixed up or worse during the raid. Our idea was to have Nick meet Aaron at Dave & Buster's, Restaurant Arcade. The Charlotte Police Department would detain him at Dave & Buster's and eventually turn him over to us, the Army. The plan worked incredibly, and the police were happy to oblige. They went the whole 9 yards to help out. We, Army peeps and plainclothes cops, parked outside Dave & Buster's and allowed Aaron to enjoy his last meal as a free man. While we sat and exchanged war stories, and Aaron ate, the narcotics unit was raiding Aaron's house. They were not too happy about the family business. Felons are not supposed to cook meth or have firearms. His father was cuffed and stuffed. We were not done yet. We wanted to twist the knife. Aaron was greeted by 4 plainclothes cops after paying the bill. The look on his face was priceless. It became more priceless when he saw his old workmates and knew we set him up. The icing on the cake. The narcotics unit brought his father to Dave & Buster's so they could ride in the same car. The patrol car that would take them both to jail. I hope he enjoyed bonding with his father. The Charlotte police charged him and his father with numerous felony charges. We were finally able to get him off our books with a court-martial and dishonorable discharge. They both went to jail. Screw you, Aaron. Story 4. Recently for work, I've been traveling between towns quite a lot. Sometimes on the way home, I'll stop in to use a public bathroom. This was all well and good until over a month ago when I needed to use the bathroom again. The urinal wasn't for a single person, but one of those long basin sort of urinals that many use at once. I approached the urinal, and soon after I got to business, this old man entered and stood in the urinal too, and began doing what I couldn't possibly think he could be doing. The first time round I chalked it up to perhaps an easy misunderstanding. But as with how you process things in a situation you've never encountered before, you're more likely to think, surely not. I quickly wash my hands and leave. Only a minute or so after returning to my car, I see him leave the bathroom, enter his car, and then leave. Thank God he didn't see me in my car. This man would stand at the far end of the urinal so that when you're washing your hands, you had to be right behind him as he did the nasty. The second time I visited this place, a few weeks later, I went and used the stall for good measure. But surely he wouldn't be here again, on a random different day, right? Well, sure enough, I left the stall, only to find him there, right beside the basin, facing the urinal doing his thing. This time I swiftly wash my hands and get out of there. Both of these times I remained completely calm and didn't change my attitude or demeanor, other than wanting to get the heck out of there both times. Making matters worse, these toilets are right beside a playground, and there are heaps of children. It's actually a lake park, and I realized that seeing this guy on 2 very random occasions could suggest he does this very often, and that I'm not the only person to have had to deal with this. It's always the 3rd time, right? 3 strikes and you're out. Well, it was a risky thing to do perhaps, and also maybe not the smartest, but I am still glad I did this. It got results. Another couple weeks later, I pulled over to make a phone call. I remembered his car, and I saw it there. This time, I didn't need to use the bathroom, but I decided to spring a trap. I really wanted to report this guy, but part of me didn't want to be wrong, and I initially had my reservations. Given this happened 2 times, on 2 random days quite far apart, I must have not been the only person to have to deal with this, unfortunately. I left my car and approached the bathroom, and I saw him sort of pacing around in the parking lot. He turned his head to look at me and did nothing. But unbeknownst to him, since I didn't move my head in his direction, and I was wearing shades, I noticed this. If he acts, now I know he has done it with intent. I walked into a stall, counted to about 7, and then flushed. I was nervous, because despite being relatively fit, sizing him up and figuring I could take him on if things got ugly, when I shut that door I wouldn't know where he'd be in the bathroom, or what his intention may be. I wanted to get it over with fast, but still give him time to enter. As I came out from the stall, sure enough he was doing his thing. I washed my hands, just like every other time, and left. While washing my hands, he cocked his head back a little and was watching me the whole time. Creepy jerk. As I walked into the parking lot, I looked back and checked he was still in the bathroom, and snapped some pictures of his car. Once I got back to my car, I made another phone call, the police, to report his actions. About 2 minutes into the call, while I'm on hold, I see him enter the car and drive off just like last time. Perfect. That is his car I took a photo of, and I've got a lead for the cops to follow up on. They sent a call out to dispatch, and within minutes I already saw a cop car driving past. Could be coincidence. I like to think not. Much later that night a cop phoned me, telling me they had paid him a visit, and they confirmed he was certainly a suspicious character. The cops told him if they received any further reports, he would be can't remember how she phrased it, stand ineligible for prosecution or something along those lines. I contacted a well-known community page for the area who made a post calling for people to speak up if they've noticed anything suspicious in the area. No names, keeping it vague. Soon after, people were talking all about similar encounters and situations like mine. From what I understand, more people are stepping forward to make reports now. The visit from the cops I hope has deterred him from doing this again, and if not, at least it will provide more leverage moving forward. Story 5. From a young age, my birth mom had a really hard time being a good child, and was the typical I'm gonna go party and get drunk and do the no-no stuff. She would go to parties and do whatever she wanted, and my grandparents didn't really do much about it. By 18, she ended up being pregnant with me, and she still wouldn't stop drinking and doing the no-no stuff while pregnant, so I ended up with some problems when I was born. But my first dad was never in the picture because she couldn't decide on whether he died or was in prison. Anyway, when I was born, she was drunk and couldn't even remember what she was going to name me, and I'm surprised that the staff didn't take me away then and there because she was an 18-year-old who was drunk like never before, and she had just given birth to a baby. She had me with her until I was 9 months old because she would call me off to her friends, and her friends finally got fed up with it, because this time she locked me in a closet and would expect other people to come check on me while she goes out and parties. Well, her friends told my aunt, and my aunt came and got me, and I went to live with my now mom and dad who had raised me since I was 9 months old, because that's the same day I went home with them. So now that I was being taken away, she was expecting some kind of child support because they were taking care of me. But she didn't understand that she had no rights to me anymore, and that she owed them child support money, which she wasn't paying through the 7 years that it took for them to be able to adopt me. So the whole time she was expecting some kind of pay, and she wasn't getting anything. So she started complaining to my parents about it and started saying how she gave birth to me, and I'm her daughter, so they owe her money, even though she wasn't actually taking care of me and now had no parental rights to me by state orders. But she still had to pay money since I wasn't adopted or technically in foster system, and so the whole 7 years that they were attempting to adopt me, she was talking about how they should take her here and there and how they owe her this and that because I'm her child, and they're taking care of me, and I'm still legally hers. Finally, when I was 7 years old, about 7 years after I was taken away, I got the choice on whether I wanted to go live with her or to stay with my parents, and I decided to stay with the people who raised me, and she was upset with that. But why would I want to go live with someone who didn't know what she was doing and honestly couldn't care less as long as she got benefits from me? She still to this day demands things, and I'm 18 now, so she can't do anything. I think I might have been around 5 when she got pregnant again with my little half-sister, and a few years after my half-sister was born, we both ended up with a half-brother who had a different dad than both me and my little half-sister, and then a few years after my half-brother was born, I had another half-brother that was born on my birthday, and he had a father too. And now she had given birth to 4 kids who all have different fathers, and I didn't even know who mine was. So she's expecting people to have sympathy for her because she has 3 kids, all different fathers, and she's living off the state. But she doesn't have any gratitude when people do things for her, like when my parents would take her to the grocery store, she would act like it's their job to do that. Or when my grandparents would take care of my half-siblings because she was neglecting them, and she acts like it's my grandparents' job to take care of them because they're the grandparents, when in reality she basically forced being a parent onto my little half-sister, who is now I think 14, and she basically had to raise herself and my 2 half-brothers. One of them is I think 10 or 11, and the other is maybe 8 or 9. I never really got to spend much time with them when we were younger because my birth mom would always try to convince me to come back to her, and I guess it's because she wanted someone who was older to be able to take care of all the kids so that she could legally go somewhere and not get in trouble, but I, of course, wasn't going to give in. As of right now, nobody in our family has contact with her or wants her in their lives. We're way better off without her. Story 6. I was working at a Tim Hortons in my youth, think 19-20 years old, and I prided myself on polite and courteous service. I was always cheerful and tried my best to fill orders promptly. I managed this by telling myself that even the worst customer could just be a normal person on the most terrible day of their life. I usually brightened people's days and saw many grumpy people leave happier because of me. Until the Karen came in. I was dealing with a lunch rush, which means for several hours people stream in as if food and drink had never existed, and will never exist again. So there were a lot of people to get through. A lot. So under these conditions, Karen showed herself. She was belligerent, rude, and had a truly massive order to fill. Nothing I couldn't handle. However, she had several drinks ordered, think 8 different beverages, and she had 3 dozen donuts. Which is fine, nothing out of the ordinary. But she had to have them specifically in a certain order in the boxes, and this took time as she ordered me about. No problem, I've dealt with weirder things while working there. The line, however, was backing up while I was serving her, and her true colors were starting to show as I filled her order. Then we get to check out. I start to ring her up. She changes her order again, 3rd time, and wants to add 4 sandwiches. I say, "Ma'am, could we ring the drink and donuts through first? Until I ring you through completely. It ties up a cash register." Karen screeches, "I won't pay more taxes on my order. You won't cheat me." I stare rather dumbfounded at this logic. I tried to argue with her saying, "Ma'am, this won't increase your taxes, it's just faster." Then she interrupted me to say, "No, I won't be cheated. You hear me?" And I shoot a deeply apologetic glance at my coworkers, who are now, regretfully, dealing with a crowd with 1 less cash register. Then proceed to head to the deli to make her sandwiches, as fast as I physically can, so I can get back to the counter. Karen smugly chides and reproaches me while I make her order, telling me, "You're making the sandwich wrong," and tries several times to order me around as if I were a complete idiot. As I'm finishing my 2nd sandwich for this woman, I am getting irritated with her attitude. I, still politely, inform her that I have to assemble the sandwiches in a certain order. I even have a physical chart to follow. I could get fired for not following the chart. She harumph at me, while muttering under her breath about how no one respects their elders anymore, and screw you, and more angrily, which, when I am beginning the 4th sandwich. My sunny disposition was leaving me at this point. This woman obviously had no respect for me, thinks I am incompetent, and doesn't care if she insults me. So impulsively, I came up with a plan as I finished up the 4th and final sandwich. Smacking my head, I say, "Oh, I almost forgot." Karen grumbles, "Forgot what?" "Well, we have a new promotional offer, and I almost forgot to ask you about it. You see, Tim Hortons has been doing ergonomic studies and has found that right-handed people and left-handed people hold bags differently." Karen looked interested, so I continue. "So with these findings, they designed ergonomic bags for their customers as a promotional offer. Would you like to participate?" Karen huffed at me. Of course I want to participate. I give my best customer service smile and say, "Okay, would you like a left-handed bag or a right-handed bag?" Karen looks offended. "A right-handed one, of course." I say, "Of course, ma'am," and duck down below the counter to quietly rummage through the completely identical bags I have. I decide to take the whole thing a step further, and I pop back up with a look of pure regret on my face. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. We only have left-handed bags left. Is that okay?" Karen is upset with this turn of events, but does not wish to lose out on the promotion. "Ugh. Fine," she says icily and grabs her order. I ring her through and watch her walk out the door with complete satisfaction in my soul. The added cherry? I heard her complaining about her left-handed bag to her friend as she walked out with her order, and the confused look on the friend's face was priceless, as this woman whined and moaned about this completely made-up problem. I never did anything like this before or since. She was a special kind of lady, the Karen with the left-handed bag. I live right between a town that has several major-ish roads and a town that, once a year, hosts a regionally major-ish fair. Animals, tractor pulls, smashy cars, live music, and fried everything, etc. My road connects the two parallel roads that join the two towns, so it's the start of a magical week full of idiots trying to find a non-existent shortcut and dumping their trash at the end of my driveway. First day of the fair, meaning tomorrow, is when I'll find the traditional Chinese takeout box filled with urine and 6 spit bottles. I'm venting my rage at an old tree stump by my driveway when, lo and behold, an intrepid, middle-aged seeker of the Northwest Passage sails towards me in a particularly beat-up Ford Ranger. Idiot. Hi. Me, still swinging my axe. If you're going to the fair, this isn't the road you're looking for. You should head back. No one ever tells you you should look at people when you're talking to them. Realizing he's one of those types, I take a break. Nope. If you're going to the fair, this isn't the road. Okay, so how do I get there? You should probably go back the way you came and get back in line. Nah, I was already there. I mean more like a shortcut. You, do live here? So you know where those are? Oh, that one. Yeah. You want to turn the other way out of the driveway. There'll be another line of cars. Get into it. Wait. What? No, I was already there. I mean a faster way to get to the fair. Look, friend, there are 2 exits off this road. Pick one, get in line, you'll get to the fair. Wow. What's your problem? You're not very helpful. It's not my job to help you. I told you what you need. Now please leave me alone. Excuse me? I just want some information. Why can't you just help me? I did. Or what do you want me to do? Rearrange a road for you. You can't talk to me like that. Why not? I don't know you, and I don't want to. Get out of here. What did you just say to me? I'm just asking you for help. And I told you what you need to know. Kindly go away. What did you just... Hold on. Did you miss the part where you are in my driveway? I'm not the fair's help desk, and I definitely don't owe you any favors. Go away. I don't know if it was what I said, the fact that I was slowly losing my temper and still holding an axe, or the siren song of Confederate flags and bacon-wrapped Oreos calling him. But that's when the spell broke. The idiot proceeded to gawk at me, then threw his truck into reverse and went tearing back up the driveway. He almost lost it and would have hit the edge of the fence if someone else hadn't taken it out the preceding year. Something tells me it would have been my fault for leaving a tree somewhere he could have hit it. So I almost wish he had clipped something just to see what would have happened next. And sure, maybe I was a little too hostile at first, but expecting good customer service from random strangers is probably a bit much. Either way, I've since acquired a no trespassing sign. Edit. Couple folks have recommended replacing the gate. The problem with that is that gates block me in too, and I didn't really care about that. Also, while it wasn't the case at the time, there's since been a stand your ground law implemented, so future incidents definitely can't have any escalation, axe or no axe. And while I do understand that they only apply in places where someone is legally permitted to be, and this has essentially turned into trespassing, I'd rather not take any chances on account of no amount of being right is a win when you're also getting shot.